Today we are having this session specifically curated for the chartered accountants and professionals. Not only is it an auspicious occasion, but also it is a very apt occasion for the topic, considering the inflection point at which our country, India, is. India is now looked upon as a country with a lot of envy, if I may say so, by all the others. And part of it is now due to the realization that it is our global roots, our values, which have been enshrined in a lot of scriptures over the ages, are more relevant now when the whole world is in a turmoil than at any point of time before. A lot of the education systems, inventions, and whatever values, principles have all been enshrined in various Indian texts, be it the Arthashastra, be it the Gita, the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and various other, the Manusmriti, and a lot of other such publications which have timeless values. One important point which I had noted when I just had a look around at the exhibition before this program is that our constitution, though it is considered to be one of the best in the world, it is not really as original as it is thought out to be, but it is really a mix and mesh of constitutions from other countries. So one of the objectives of this program is to try and see how we can improve on our constitutions. Coming to the role of Indian CAs in the ongoing globalization, see, there is no better time even for chartered accountants to be part of the global stage. We have now spread our wings, footprints far and wide, whether it is in the Silicon Valley or whether it is in Singapore, whether it is in the Middle East, whether it is in Hong Kong or Europe. Our chartered accountants are now playing a global role. Thus now, there is nothing like physical boundaries. Sitting at your office here, you can serve global clients. So the winds of change are definitely catching up as far as our profession is also concerned. Lot of our CAs now render global services, whether it is transfer pricing, whether it is IFRS advisory, OECD compliances, and whatnot. There are several such areas. Now, what role does BCAS play in this entire ecosystem? BCAS is India's largest and oldest voluntary body of chartered accountants, established in 1949. We are 77 years old, just 6 days younger to the ICAI, which is the parent body, having been started on 6th July 1949. Initially, it started as what I call the Wednesday Club, wherein a group of chartered accountants used to get together on a Wednesday, meeting and discussing, and then it has evolved and now grown into a banyan tree. We have now, initially though it was Bombay, now we have really spread our wings across the length and breadth of India, or what I call Bharat. We have around 12,500 members spread across nearly 400 towns and cities. And I'm happy to state that at least more than 50% of our members are now outside Mumbai, around 6,500. How can BCAS help in through this globalization? There are 4 or 5 ways. First is through its core knowledge. We ensure that not only the local developments and requirements are complied with, but we also ensure that a lot of the international requirements are complied with. We have an international tax committee, for example, which deals with international tax. That is just one of the examples. Then the second is we help in building global networks. May not be very formal still, but that is one of our aims. We occasionally do interact with associations outside India also, like the American Accounting Association, the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Australia. But that is still not at a very large scale. We hope to do more of that going forward. Recently, we have undertaken a lot of initiatives on the advocacy front. And that also is a view to basically aligning the best practices globally. We do undertake research, even on topics which are not currently in vogue in India, but which are in vogue internationally and which we hope that they will be in vogue in India soon. Another important way, indirect way in which we help building international networks and globalization is, let's face it, the future of our profession is the youth. And we help in nurturing the youth, in mentoring them, guiding them, so that they can provide services which are now other than what are ordinarily were provided maybe 10, 15 years back, which are more global and international in nature. And finally, our endeavor is, as is the case with any professional, we ensure that all the ethical values, especially those which have been passed on to us centuries back, continue to be nurtured and help us really to build the profession and ultimately to build a Viksit Bharat, a developed India, as we move towards our 100th year. So we hope that this lecture will really give us a lot of insights based on the experience of our distinguished, international experience of our distinguished speaker today. And we will be back after this lecture much wiser. Thank you very much once again. My best wishes. May God bless all of you. And may God bless our beloved Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. Thank you very much. I would now request Kinjal Bhutta, our treasurer, to please introduce the faculty. Thank you.
Very good evening to dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, and to all the participants who are going to view this session on our live YouTube channel. We are very fortunate to get introduced to Mr. Shaurya Doval, and we are here to have his deliberations on the very different and I think a very balanced topic, very ironic probably the topic is, which is basically ancient global roots, reimagining the global leadership for chartered accountants. So I think it is a very thought-provoking topic which has been suggested. Coming to the important task which has been assigned to me of introducing Mr. Doval. So Mr. Shaurya Doval is a managing director at Torch Investments when he leads the global investment business out of Singapore. He has nearly 25 years of international investment banking experience, during which time he has worked for over a decade in different countries, London, New York, and leveraged financial business for GE Capital and investment banking division of Morgan Stanley. He has also worked with corporate finance advisory at Arthur Andersen in India. A fellow chartered accountant, alumnus of ICI, as well as alumnus of the prestigious Hindu College. He is also holding a degree of MBA from London Business School and Booth School, University of Chicago. He is a recipient of the Udyog Ratna Award in 2012 for his contribution to the growth of the Indian power sector. So with a brief discussion which we could have just before the session, I could fathom that he is a person of multiple pursuits, and there is this another hat which he wears, where he is also a director of the India Foundation, a think tank which is based in New Delhi with strong nationalistic credentials. He started India Foundation in 2009. On his return from London, and has been closely associated with the growth of the foundation since last a decade plus. The foundation is his modest attempt to influence the national discourse and policies of resurgent India. Mr. Doval was the Eisenhower Fellow from India for 2015. He was selected by the government of Japan for their invitation program for ministers, strategic exchange on practical level step for the year 2022-23, where he learned about the culture, economy and policy making in Japan. He was also nominated as a Fellow of World Academy of Arts and Science in July 2024. I think this is just a small and a bird's eye view of what achievements you hold, Mr. Doval. We are delighted and we look forward to your session. Please everyone, please give a huge round of applause.
Good evening, namaskar to all the esteemed fellow CAs of the Bombay chapter of Chartered Accountants, all the audience, guests, and everybody in this hall. It is both my privilege and honor to be invited to be speaking with you today evening. My primary purpose of coming to Mumbai today was essentially to attend an event in the morning of Vasudev Kutumbakam, where I had the chance to, besides being a panelist, also see the exhibition that is being displayed here at the August Kranti Maidan. And I had thought of some things to say to you today evening, but my speech has changed since I have gone to that exhibition, and actually I have nothing much to add than being able to say some of the things that I learned from that exhibition today. So my speech originally was something else, but again it's revised, because the topic that I had chosen from the letter that was given to me by the organizers was, how does India move in the next 25 years from exporting intellectuals to exporting intellect? So what is it that now that for years as India we have been sending intellectuals to the world, we provide IT services, we provide academics, we provide doctors and engineers, but how do we move from there to exporting intellect, and what will that intellect be? And I think today's, as I said, the exhibition was quite an eye-opener and actually opened my mind even more to what that intellect could be. Most of you must have heard that by 2047, India wants to be a Vishwaguru. Vishwaguru, for simple terms, essentially wants to be a leader, a world leader, But for any leadership, there are two aspects. One is that there is no guru if there are no followers. So what will be India's stage that India will be able to claim itself to be a global leader? And who will follow India? And why will they follow India if India decides or aspires to be a leader? That's the first fundamental question. That, how do you become a guru and how do you create followers? Second question, which I think is more pertinent and I'll dwell on it, is then what does the guru say? What is that this guru says that is different from anybody else? And we've had the honor and pleasure and guidance of the Jayanacharya Yug Bhushan Suriji over the last 2 days, and his guidance, and this is what guru is, just like for this Jain Samudaya, there is him as a guru. We as a nation, if aspire to be a leader of global nations, then we have to be different. We have to decide that what is a guru will be, what will be India's message as a country to the rest of the world. So let me start with the first question, that why will India be listened to, before I come to what India will say. And No, why India will be listened to is actually becoming increasingly clear that India will be listened to because India is becoming what we now call as a hard power. India and it's not obvious because for thousands of years we were a colonized nation, we were a poor nation. But now increasingly as we go into the 21st century, and the evidence of that is very clear that by 2025, but it will be even clearer by the time we hit 2047 or 2050, that India will be a world leader because of India's hard power. That India will be listened to. India, whether the world likes it or not likes it, the India will become a guru, India will have a stage. There are 200 countries in this world, more or less, of which the most powerful 7 countries is called the G7, the next are called G20. India is already a member of the G20, became a member of that in 2006 and 7, and is increasingly a member of the G7, practically a member of the G7. They have to yet alter it to allow it for India to participate, but there is no G7 which happens without India, even already. So India is already in the room. And India is already becoming is already a guru, or if you take these 6-7 nations as being the leaders of the world order, India is already that, even in this year, even by now. And that comes from 3 dimensions of India's strength. The source of India's strength comes from 3. I'll quickly allude on 3 of them, we won't spend too much time. One is India's geopolitical power. India is a nation of 1.4 billion people, about 20% of the global humanity. It's a nuclear power. It has a standing army of 1.4 million. It controls the entire security system from the Strait of Malacca to the Gulf of Hormuz. So this entire order of this part of the world, which we call as South Asia, is really India's security domain. So India's geopolitical presence is already established. There can be no world peace and no world order without India. As a matter of fact, today the only 3 axes of global power which will increasingly becoming responsible for global security will be the United States, China and India. And therefore all the geopolitics that you see, that no world order can be established, no world peace can be established without India's presence. So India is going to be a geopolitical power, and that is increasingly becoming evident, and India has also been asserting itself as a geopolitical power. So India was slowly building up the capacities and capabilities but wasn't asserting itself. But in the last 10 years you see India's assertion become more visible, more loud, as India positions itself as a geopolitical power. India, whether it is the United Nations, they are seeking a permanent seat at the United Security Council, whether it is on global public forums, whether it is on India's independent position on various issues, you see India assert. Even India's military operations that have been conducted as for threats emanating outside India actually display India's presence as a geopolitical power. We also see resentment to that geopolitical power. You see the events unfolding in Bangladesh. Yesterday we had to close our embassy there. That is because India is an increasing player, and the world recognizes that we are a player, whether it is in the countries of South Asia or as countries as far as Africa and West Asia, and even at times into Europe. So India is one, a geopolitical power. Second, India is going to be a big economic power. That is already evident. We are now the 4th largest economy in the world. There are, as I said, we are about now a $4 trillion economy. We're going to double it to about 8 trillion in the next 10-15 years. And by the time we hit 2047, we will be around a $30 trillion economy. So we are increasingly moving from being the 4th, and in about a few years we'll be the 3rd largest economy in the world. So the world economic order will again be divided between China, United States and India as the 3 big economic powers. We're still a long way to go in terms of per capita income, but that does not matter. That's a distribution question. It doesn't matter a net comprehensive capabilities of a nation. So India's economic power again was not very evident. I was telling some people I qualified as a chartered accountant in 97, when that was about 50 years to India's independence. When India was in 1997, India's GDP was $300 billion. It became $1 trillion. So when the English left us, our economy was $30 billion. It took us 50 years to become $300 billion. So we were about 10x at that time. We became $1 trillion by 2007. That's when we became a G20 country. There are only, as I said, 16 countries in the world that have over $1 trillion economic size. We became a G20 country in 2007. What we did in 60 years, between 47 and 2007, which has become $1 trillion of GDP, we doubled that to a 2 trillion within 7 years from 2007 to 2014. And then in next 5 years, from 2014 to 2019, we became a $3 trillion economy. Had COVID not come, we would have already crossed 4 trillion much earlier, but we are now a $4 trillion economy as we hit 75 years of our independence. Consider that to the light that in the next 10 years, we will just add to our country what we've added in the last 75 years. We will be about an $8 trillion economy in the next 10 to 12 years. So our rate of growth makes us as a big economic power and puts us in the league of those nations who define the global economic order. Now for years, for decades, we were excluded from that economic order. But today the world has no other option but because of our hard power to take us into that order. And also, as I said, we represent a big global market. No company in the world can survive or succeed without being able to sell in this $1.4 billion market growing at 6 to 8% per year. So whether it is automobiles, whether it is space, whether it is technology, whether it is food products, everybody needs India. So India is going to be an economic power. That is also the second pivot or second bulwark of India's hard power. The third power that comes from India is that India is also an intellectual power. India's economic power hasn't come because we suddenly discovered oil or we had some natural resources that made us an economic power. India's economic power and its geopolitical power, ability to become a nuclear power or to maintain the world's biggest professional army or to multiply our GDP doesn't really come from the fact that we had some windfall. It comes because we actually house some of the best brains in the world that have given us the advantage in space, in medicine, in engineering. That's why we have the IITs, we have the All Institute of Medical Sciences, we have the Indian Institute of Science Bank, we have the Chartered Accountants of India. We are actually really an intellectual powerhouse that allowed us to take leadership in services sector. So in technology companies, in IT companies in 2000s, subsequently in the pharmaceutical world, in medicines and drugs, in space, in agriculture. I mean, our achievements are just phenomenal. We are the only developing nation that has been able to achieve food security of a magnitude of this size that nobody has ever seen in the history of the world. You know, when India became independent, we had 300 million people. And in India, the British colonization had left us in a situation where 1 million people used to die every year of hunger. In 1942, 6 million people died during the Bengal famine. From that, on that same piece of land, from 300 million people, we have become 1.4 billion people. 1.4 billion mouths to feed. And not a single person in this country dies of hunger. We have 15% more food production than we can manage. We actually don't have the food processing capability. It is our intellectual ability that from the same piece of land, we have been able to generate so much of output. And now we are going to the next level as our per capita increases, where we are increasing our protein content, our quality of food better. But basic food security we were able to achieve. I'm just giving an example of India's intellectual prowess. That is what is India, and that is also evident, you know, whichever world societies we are deans of global universities, we are CEOs of global corporations, we are prime ministers and presidents of foreign countries. Why? It all emanates from our intellectual capability. And the reason I say this is because intellectual capability is no longer a soft power of a nation. It is a hard power of a nation. Because it will decide in the next 25 years who will be the global leaders. Because if we are living in a world of ideas, we live in a world where who controls the intellectual talent actually controls the world. And we saw that in India's ability during COVID to provide medicine to our own people to find solutions. If we did not have the intellectual capability, we would not have been able to come up with a vaccine. If we were not able to come up with a vaccine, nobody in the world would have been able to vaccinate 20% of humanity. We not only vaccinated ourselves, we vaccinated many other parts of the world. So, our intellectual power is also a very, very strong basis of what we are and who we are as a nation. So if we sum up and triangulate these three fundamental hard powers, which is what we say as geopolitical power, economic power, and intellectual power, we are indeed a formidable nation, and a nation who has the stage and who will be listened to when 1.4 billion people actually speak the world, and not emaciated people from some part of Africa or something. This is India that speaks, the world actually listens. But then the question comes, which is the moot question that I wanted to answer, was that what is India going to export? So if India does emerge as a Vishwaguru, are we just going to be another America? Are we going to be another China, another Russia, which says might is right? That we can take away the president of Venezuela, we can take the oils of a country, or we can become colonizers. For centuries, we never colonized anybody. Now we have got the power, we are a nuclear power, we have a blue water navy, we have as I said, a 14 million military, we have the abilities. Should we become colonizers? Should we have interfere in foreign countries? Should we go take their resources? Is this what India wants to? Because this is what the current world order is, that might is right. Right? Now, India comes onto this world order, and India wants to say something which is different. And that actually takes me to what this exhibition today was, because as I thought about what will India export, what is the intellect India will export, it became very evident to me that the 12 principles that have been taken from our Shastrat and actually presented in this exhibition are actually the only 12 things India wants to export, which nobody else in the world is talking about. And I will just quickly walk one by one through all 12 of them, but it's very interesting to see that if you cover these 12 principles, you actually cover the entire range of India's USP. And I cannot find any other nation in the world that can even remotely talk this language, leave aside, be able to articulate it. What do we guarantee? What do we want to export? We want to be exporters of security. We want a guarantee of security. That is, everybody in this world is secure because India is strong. Therefore, the rule of justice must remain, and that people under the rule, under the umbrella of security, live peacefully. And therefore, we don't say might is right. We say what is right is right. And therefore, every nation, whether big or small, has the right to be available and access to the security. So what does India do? When India becomes a G20 member and hosts the G20 in September of 2023 or 4 in India, the first thing India did was, India said, we will make the African Union a permanent member of the G20. A continent of 1 billion people that had never been included in the architecture of the global order, India said, as the guarantor of security, now that we are part of this club, we were earlier part of the outside world, we were not part, now that we have come into this club, the first thing we want to do is to represent those people who don't get a voice in this club. That is why when our Prime Minister goes to the islands of Fiji and the Pacific Islands, the actual presidents and prime ministers of those countries touch his feet, which is against every international established protocol, not because they are respecting him as a president of some prime minister of a country, because they are saying that you as our representative put our voice out there. We were small nations, we are not powerful nations, nobody was listening to us. India, when it went to the top stage, did not forget about us. India did not say, now I have become member of this club, what do I care about the rest of the world? As a matter of fact, I must now become a perpetrator of this violence like rest of them, because now I have capacities. India just did the opposite. So our first principle that of our foreign policy we want to export is we want to guarantee the security. That is why we want to become members of the Security Council. We don't want to become the 6th member of the Security Council just to become effectively another of the 5. We want to show to the world that with might you can also create right and equal, and that is the first guarantee of peace. Secondly, we are exporters of guarantees of basic necessities. We believe that everybody, because we have suffered, We suffered years and decades of famine. We lost our loved ones with lack of food. We understand how basic necessity, and that is why we created for ourselves. We created Operation Flood, we Operation Green Revolution. We created enough food. We want to create food for everybody in the world. For the people in Africa, for the people in West Asia, wherever there is lack of food and basic necessities, medicines and foods, India is the first country to provide that and help those countries. That is why even during COVID with Operation Maitri, we were the first people. No other Western power came to distribute medicines or the vaccines to nations that could not do it. Even as we developed our own vaccine, we were going about the world guaranteeing basic necessities in the form of medicine. It is an example of how we are of a nation. Third thing we would like to export is health and education. Again, one of the core principles. We are great believers that education, we as a nation have benefited from education. Our society has moved up. We are a knowledge society. That's what I said. Intellect was one of the cornerstones of our hard power. We created global world institutions, from our IITs to our chartered accountant societies, etc. We want health and education to everywhere. That is why we want our educational institutions to go out and spread the wings of Indian education to the rest of the world. We are all for free growth and development. We want everybody to develop, all nations to develop. We are equally in guarantee of support and guidance, which is the fifth principle. We want equal access to common resources. That is why we resent what is happening in Venezuela. We are against this. That is why we are buying Russian oil, because we believe that there must be equal access to common resources. Everybody must have access to resources based upon, and geopolitics must not decide what resources to be given to some and not to the others. It cannot be that the West can take gas from Russia because it suits the winters of Europe, but India and the other countries cannot buy oil from it because India is a poor country and inflation does not matter to the West. You cannot use your geopolitical power to prevent India from getting access to common resources, and India, through its strength and might, also ensures that these common resources are made available not just to India but to the world. We are guarantors of individualism, which is the basic tenet of Indian society. As a democracy, we change governments every 5 years. We are constantly, you just had your BMC election. We're constantly in an election mode. We are constantly believe that power must move not through autocracy but through democracy, which is nothing but putting the individual at the center point of legal rights and franchise. So yes, we are guarantors of individualism. We are not believers in communism or social orders or monarchies, etc. Guarantor of family bonds and feelings. Again, a great message from India. In the world where the families have collapsed, India believes that the common denominator of society is not the individual but a family. It is the family unit that actually decides as the lowest common denominator. That is why Indian society's message to the world is very, very different, because the whole world is realized that when you make the individual and maximize the individual's benefits and individual happiness, you lead to the crumbling of society, which is what the West is seeing. You lead to the crumbling of the family, you lead to crumbling of society, and you lead to individual unhappiness despite economic prosperity and geopolitical power. So we see that a lot in the Western world, in the United States, in Europe, where with the collapse of the individualism, with the collapse of the family, religion, society, and now even the state is withering. And therefore, it's very, very important that Indian message of Indian culture of family bonds and feelings, which puts individual behind the family behind the society behind the country, and the country behind the Vishwa. That is why we give this concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We say that the world is one big family, and therefore as members of the family, we have our role to subordinate our own individual interests and happiness to that of the family. They are also, because you believe in the family, you believe in society, you believe in the guarantee of protection to the weak and the vulnerable. It is, you say that those who are less enfranchised, less powerful, must be supported by those who have the capacity to them. You believe in justice and grievance, redressal and punishment, which is equally important. So India, as I said, uses its hard power. We have suffered from terrorism for the longest period of time, and we are great believers that terrorism must be punished in the same currency in which they understand. And that you have seen in the last 10 years, this government has actually been using its capacities and capabilities in making the terrorists realize that there is a very, very high cost to terrorism. And hopefully, what happened in Bombay in 2009 will never happen to India ever again. Because India believes it's a global principle, not against anybody. But the people of bad character and bad intentions must be punished as an example to the good, because when you punish the evil, you actually do service to the good. We are believers in equal but differential duty according to capability, which is again a great principle of the economic principle, but not so well articulated by the West in their division of labor. Their division of labor was about providing labor on the basis of economic output, to maximize output. That is why they colonized Africa. They put people in the factories and made them work 14 hours and in subhuman conditions, because they said output production, profit maximization allows for maximum use of labor and capital, which is what Adam Smith and all said. Ours is different. We say equal. Everybody must get equal share, but people must be given the work according to the capability of the person. So there must be different roles, different duties, and different capacity enhancement of individuals, so that they can rise to the full levels of their capacity. So what kind of an economic order do we create is the other question, in terms of an equal but differential duty according to capability. And then finally, we believe that the world must be in the hands of a strong, mature, neutral and visionary leadership. In the world of the G6, the G7, the world will always have big nations and small nations. The world will always have leaders and followers. The world will always have gurus and shishyas. But the question is, what is the message the gurus are giving them? What is the message the leaders are giving them? Is the message that United States giving the world the right message? Is the message that Mr. Donald Trump is giving the world the right message? Is this like in a family, a father justifying that just because he is powerful he can do anything wrong? That's not the right message. A guru's message must be what their own life is. Gandhiji used to say, my life is my message. Gurus must walk the talk. Leaders must walk the talk. So what kind of leaders are we producing? India's leadership should be, as I said, to the world, of a strong, mature, neutral and visionary. That is, we want to see the world where there is global order, global peace, global growth of individualism, and the coming generations are able to benefit from a much better world than what their ancestors got. So this is what it's completely enshrined in our two big principles. One that you saw here, actually both that you see here, Vasudev Kutumbakam and Sarve Jana Sukhina Bhavantu. Both, if you look at this is what India's export of intellect will be in the times to come. India will take these two very powerful messages, first clearly said many years ago by Swami Vivekananda to the world. But now the time has come. When Swami Vivekananda said it, India was a beaten nation. India was a slave nation. Nobody listens to slaves. Nobody heard much of it, and the world went about doing what it had to do. Swamiji had given the clarion call then, that what does this society and this civilization stand for? But wheels of time change. Nations that have the intrinsic capacities and capabilities cannot be kept down for too long. So India rose from the ashes. As I said, India is rising every day. Today, with our technology, with our economy, with our intellectual power, there is no doubt that, and the world recognizes it, we are not saying it, the world is saying it, that we are a hard power that cannot be walked upon. And India can do what it wants. India can buy Russian oil and also keep America also at bay, wanting to do a trade deal with India. But That hard power is not to provide any victimization, to trouble, to suppress people. You know, that India's hard power will be to provide the world with exporting of an intellect of a different kind. So India has always exported intellectuals, as I said, from Swami Vivekananda time to now. But now India will export the intellect. And I think in the coming times, the world will see the benefits of what India is saying. We have seen some very early examples in yoga and Ayurveda of India's exporting of India's intellect and how that has caught up in the world. As India is able to project itself better, India is able to send its message better, I think in coming times we will see more and more exporting of India's intellect happening in the world, and with that the world accepting India as a Vishwaguru and India's capabilities and capacities being recognized with the world. So with this hope and this promise of a better future, I sincerely believe that all of you, in wherever you are, in whatever you are doing, will contribute in making this national journey possible. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
We have time for a few questions, a couple of questions, should anybody want to ask.
Especially under your father, who is the national security advisor currently and is considered to be the James Bond of India. And while you took this profession of chartered accountancy, so what inspired you to take up a profession which was quite different from what your family and father used to do? And how do you resonate with this as service to the country?
It's a very... can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, it's a very personal and but a very pertinent question, because as I said, we must all walk the talk. So, it's very interesting. So I come from Uttarakhand. I come from a family where wearing the uniform is just very natural. My grandfather was an army officer. My father was in the security services. And, so in the 90s, when I was growing up as a young boy, I went to the Army Public School. I'm a product. I was about to join the Indian Army and all. So just, like everybody else. But something very interesting happened. I was a young boy, I think in my early 90s. I just passed out my school. And I went to my father and I asked him, I said, listen, I'm going to join the Indian Police Service or the Army or one of the uniformed services. Do you think it's a good idea? He said, young man, listen, do whatever you want to, but it's your call. But let me tell you something. I think the world is changing. India had just, it was 1991, we had just opened our economy. Manmohan Singh was then the finance minister and Narasimha Rao was our prime minister. And some of you may remember we had opened and started to grow as an economy, had liberalized for the first time. And he said to me that I think the future of India will depend upon growth and not control. And therefore, if you are young, you are all of, at that time I was just about maybe 18 or 20. If you really want to serve your country, you will find greater opportunities to serve in areas of growth rather than in areas of control. And therefore, think about something which is more economically driven. And therefore, that led me to the chartered accountants, as becoming a chartered accountant when I graduated. It led me to economics first, when I did my undergrad in economics from Hindu College in Delhi. And today my father is responsible for the security of this country. We're talking 30, 40 years later. And today, the other day, he was telling me, he said, by the country's greatest security will be determined by the fact that if we can become a $30 billion economy. If India becomes an economic growth, and I spend a lot of time with big industrialists in this country, with all the business people, this is what I tell them. If we have to guarantee the security of this country, we have to ensure that we become 30. We become 30 billion, we will take care of everything else. Rest, we have got the capacities and the capabilities. But if we fail to become that size, we subject ourselves to being colonized again. So we need the technology, because because when we have the resources, we have the intellectual capital, and we have now the bare minimum security that nobody can trample upon. So I think in coming times, and greater national service, not that greater or lesser, but a lot of national service can be done by the private sector in building the India of tomorrow. And I think that is where the private sector must rise. And I think that is where I come in, because now I come from the private sector. And therefore I see private sector is not only about profit maximization or making money for yourself. It is a great instrument of doing national service in this country.
Hello. Sir, very good articulation of your views, and I really like your views on the entire subject. My question is that India suffers on two counts. One is a reservation policy, because there that's where we see that duty as per the competence is not going, and reservation policy where a person with 35% can get into admission in the medical, and person with the 99% doesn't get admission. Second is, and that also happens in the jobs as well. And second is about the judiciary system. The present judiciary, the delays, the corruption, and what are your views on these two counts?
Thank you for your question. I think your question is valid. And I think both these things that you mentioned, I'll try and give some historical context. Let me start with corruption. Corruption is actually one of the greatest evils of colonization. India wasn't a corrupt society till 900 AD. If you see everything, in our Shastras, there were very written rules about how the king must behave, how the state must behave, what are the roles of various elements of the state, what our rights towards women are. We were a very egalitarian society. We were not a discriminatory society. Even in gender equality, India was a very open society. It was only the advent of colonialism of 1,000 years that actually migrated a lot of viruses from various parts of the world. Corruption was one such virus. Crime against women was another such thing. So lots of things came with that. We were exposed to nuclear radiation for 1,000 years. It has only been 75 years when we are detoxifying ourselves. It will take time. It is embedded in our system, right? But we understand that this is not intrinsic to us. Our people are not bad. The system and architecture that the colonizers left, because the colonizers created an architecture which was for extraction, which was for looting India. British did nothing for India. Even the Mughals, etc., didn't do anything for India. They just extracted from India and either benefited themselves or exported it to their countries like the United Kingdom. In creating that, they left an architectural system whose colonization and sustenance of the colony was based on corruption. Corrupting the state, corrupting the rajas, corrupting all dimensions of society. And therefore, this corruption malice is very, very deeply embedded in Indian society. And therefore, it will take time. But I think India, in the coming India, is cognizant of it, partly with technology, partly with greater awareness. As society becomes more urbanized, as more educated, we will get out of this. But it's and it's a self-inflicted, because if we could get out of it faster, we would grow faster. But this is as I said, a long. If your body is exposed to long periods of exposure, it will take times to come back. But the process of detoxification is on. Regarding reservation, reservation is, while it looks on prima facie, as you rightly said, that it punishes meritocracy and pushes meritocracy, and that is, while it is true, it is partially true and not fully true. Because the other thing that has happened is that Indian society was also a very unequal society for a long period of time. And this inequality in the society was very societally, structurally embedded. To repair this, we had to do affirmative action. We had to do affirmative action to try and push through marginalized groups that have not got equal rights. Otherwise, we would have created a country where the haves would have continued to take a disproportionate resource. Many countries have not done it. Look at the state of United States. United States does nothing for affirmative action. They held slavery also. The state of black people in America is so bad because they did nothing for them, even after 200 years of abolishing slavery. But we, in 75 years, realized that is why we bought things like Mandal Commission, and there was a lot of resentment in the country. But the leaders of the country understood that if we didn't do this, like somebody was telling that, those of you know North India, that if we had not bought, if Lalu Yadav we had not bought 91 Mandal Commission, Lalu Yadav was saying all of Bihar and Eastern UP would have been Naxal. We would have been fighting 100 million people who would have taken up arms against their own country, because they would have felt that this country does not belong to them. Right? So affirmative action has given them a stake in this country. While it has obviously brought the level of meritocracy down, some meritocracy period students have suffered, but they have found other places. New opportunities have come. They have gone to newer geographies. Those who could not get admission there have gone to Harvards and Stanfords and created names there. So I think an equilibrium will be there, and subsequently India will abolish reservation when the time comes. The time of that has not come. It will take some more time for it. Same thing with gender, with the women. We are the first people who are now trying to push for a greater role of women in politics, asking for reservation, women reservation. Look how difficult it is to get through parliament. No political party is willing to do it, despite everybody committing to it. Because affirmative action always is very difficult, because it removes the status quoist beneficiaries and brings in new beneficiaries. So we must have patience. I understand the sensitivities of reservation. We all, at an individual level, feel we've been victimized by it. But I think in the larger interest of the country, it has been a good decision, by and large.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Yeah. I am Vijay Mehta. My question is that I have no doubt that India will become a Vishwa Guru by 2047. But along with the growth of our country, we will not, what gives us an assurance that we will not be influenced by the Western influences which we are already currently facing it, and it will penetrate through our rural areas. So all the pitfalls of the Western countries, like family destruction, no families, all that will also penetrate in India. How do we ensure that?
That how the Western influence. Yeah, I think there is, you see, we have to assume that these influences will continue. There is no way we can stop them, and we should not try to stop them. We should try to create our model which is more appealing to our younger generations, to be able to resist them and actually overcome them. For example, there is no point telling people don't watch movies, but make movies better that show the Indian value system so that people watch it. People said, oh, nationalism is not interesting in this country. Everybody doesn't like, we are a very pacifist society. Look, that movie, that Durandar is making some 1,700 crores or something like that. Good movies is changing the way society is without being... So the way to stop culture, look at this exhibition. So many young children are coming and watching it. So the question is that rather than trying to resist, create walls, which was what we did in the past. We created forts. That is why, Kabul came and took Jaipur. We should have created a fort in Kabul. We should have gone to Kabul rather than waiting for Kabul to come to us, right? Or London to come to us. Why didn't we go? So better is we build our capacities. We take our stories. I was telling, we will take this exhibition to New York and to London. Why should we stop them from coming here? They will put MTV. What is our response to that? And that is the fight that will happen in the coming times.
Thank you.
I think one question I had was seeing the profession today as a chartered accountant. Should we guide the younger generation that go abroad as we used to tell them, or India is in a position now that we call our friends who have gone outside back to India? What should we think about that now for the profession?
I don't think we have to be prescriptive. I think water will take its natural course as more and more young people find out that India offers more opportunities for growth. They will come back here than there. This is their natural country and they will contribute here. We don't have to make it prescriptive by saying what we should encourage our children is to see India and also see the world and let them come to their own conclusion. Right? That is more enduring and more, show them their opportunity, show how good our education is, how much our culture is. What everybody should do is rather than only taking holidays overseas, they should also take holidays in India and show the children and then let them decide.
Yeah, the question is related to this part only. Earlier we were having the institutions like Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya where people from world were coming to India to study. But today also, although we know that most of CEOs of the world's best company are from India, but most of them have studied outside India. So what is lacking in India now still so that the education becomes more important and the growth will also automatically be done that? And particularly what institutes like ICAI or other IIM etc. can do specifically either of their own or along with the help of the corporate and government to do that? Improving for the education instead of going out, how the people should see that they need to be in India only.
So if I understand your question, that India is still losing a lot of talent.
Even at the time of studies also. Even at the time of studies also. For studies also, people are still looking for outside India, not in the India.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you are right. I think our educational institutions need to create more opportunities, economic opportunities for our children here, and for them to believe that they will want to stay here. Right now, we have to create more entrepreneurship, create more ideas of where they can do things and create a better future for themselves. The only reason they go out is because they still believe that the world there offers a better future. That's the only reason. It's very simple. If they knew, why don't they go to Africa? Why do they want to go to America, go to United Kingdom? Because they think it's better there. You create better conditions here. You give them a chance to grow faster here. You support them and their dreams. You don't try to tell them and be prescriptive about what they can do. You give them independence. You give a safer environment to women who don't want to leave this country. You want to, I think we do those basic things. The problem is we have to fix our own house. That is the answer. The answer is not to either stop anybody or tell the rest, or try to spoil their house, because that never wins. Make your house so good that our own children want to stay here. And I think we are all working towards that. All this is an exercise. We just have to have a little bit more patience.
Hello, sir. My name is Shaheen Badsha, and like you, even I went to this exhibition. And what thought I got, and I feel, and since many years, that we are Indians, our DNA is India, related to the Vedas, the Shastras. If we have removed it from our system, our DNA has accepted Western thoughts or outside thoughts, which are not conducive to our DNA. So should we not have a parallel Gurukul education for all those who want? I'm not saying force it on people, but for all those who want, so that we never lose our connect with our Vedas, Shastras, and that years that India was having 30% or plus GDP was perhaps because the Vedas, the Shastras were guiding us. They were in us in every aspect of life, be it the judiciary, be it the rulers, be it the education, and be it the business. So unless we get back to that stage, I feel we will still keep missing our growth targets, or corruption will continue, or whatever the unfortunate negatives are there in our society may continue. That's my view. Sir, I would request your thoughts on this. Thank you.
I thank you. More parallel indigenous education systems are coming up. Look how we are doing well in Ayurveda, how are we doing in yoga. We are also trying to start this Gurukul system again. We're doing work on indigenous using technology. I think it's from it was like Professor Sachin Chaturvedi in Nalanda University. When they attacked Nalanda University in some 1400 AD had 1400 years of various libraries. They demolished everything. Then they burnt everything. Then Nalanda got buried under the earth. Think of us, metaphorically, think of us like this. Then somewhere in 1900, somebody excavated them. Now, the first Khandar came out. Today, we have re-established Nalanda University. And so, this, just like I'm taking physically, this was just an example, this is what is happening. Our Vedas, our scriptures had got fossilized because we had to hide them. The colonizers were going to burn them. They were not allowing us to practice them. So 1,000 years we lost. We didn't fully lose it. We kept it. We kept preserving it. But we could not extrapolate it across society. That process has now started. And the process has started, and now you see, just like the economic growth I was telling you, this will not grow in increments, it will grow in exponents. So I am not worried that the future generations will be more Indian than the generations were there in the past. Look at how we are accepting our language. Indian government, which includes 3 crore people, used to operate only in English. Somebody was telling me today in the morning, why was our constitution written in English? Why was it not written in Hindi? Today you cannot operate in government of India if you don't know Hindi. Or in state government in Maharashtra if you don't know Marathi.
We are bringing our languages back. After 50 years, people will not operate in English. People will operate in indigenous languages. So it will take time.
This is Kamlesh Mehta. I think so. My answers to everyone. First thing, that how much we approach ourselves is our self-discipline. Please tell me that. How much we all have the self-discipline. My first question is a voting. All this educated, we are sitting here. How much voting we have done? And now we made a complaint against the government, any government. I have no even a politics. But understand, you have a right, and we are not going. You are talking about your culture. Give the culture from your birth of your, when the children birth, give them the culture. Give at least for 10 years, 14 years, or at least up to 10 years. I will assure you that that culture will go, and it will be so much penetrated in their heart and everywhere, and the boy and girl will never go to the, all this nonsense. They go to the places, they will enjoy, but they will never come across to the other things. So this really, I'm sorry to say this, but this is a must. Am I say correct?
Yes. Absolutely.
So all this education will help us when we really, even today our boys and girls, they don't go for a voting. Let's go 2 days ka holiday, let's go Lonavala, let's go Pune, let's go this. Sorry to bother you, all of you, but this is the fact of our life. And if you really want to support any government, okay, go for a voting, then ask the responsibility of the government. I'll just give you one example, which just next to my door, okay, which is a Belasis Bridge at Bombay Central. They finished the job in 1 year and 10 months, which is the achievement of this BMC and the state government. They made it.
Sir, can you restrict yourself to the question that you want to ask to the speaker?
What do you say?
So what is the exact question that you want to ask to the speaker?
I just want to say to the people that when you ask the question, that this is a basic question of everyone, that why we are not disciplined ourselves, self-discipline. For everything. We throw the, our, dust, every papers, anything, just on the road.
Sir, point well taken.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Now the same thing, you go at the Dubai and just try that. I'm telling you, just try. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. Friends, before we start with the pleasant task of proposing a well-deserved vote of thanks, may I request the co-chair SMPR committee, Chirag Doshi, to propose a photo frame and a memento.
Yes, sir, look here. Look here, sir. Yes, sir, look here.
It was so seamlessly connected to the Indian civilizational wisdom with the contemporary challenges of the global leadership. He aptly observed that India commands respect by upholding the principle that right is right, in contrast to the prevailing global notion of might is right, a value that deeply resonates with the ethos of the chartered accountancy profession. In his address, he reminded us, a nation that forgets its past has no future, and hence the leadership of future must be anchored to a deep understanding of the history, value and purpose. Sir, your articulation of how Indian professionals, particularly the chartered accountants, can play a defining role in shaping the global governance, economic resilience and ethical leadership was both inspiring and extremely timely. In this context, I quote Swami Vivekananda, who says, "Arise, awake and stop, not till the goal is reached." We are truly inspired by this quote and your wisdom that you shared today. I would also like to place on record our sincere appreciation to the managing committee of the Jyot Foundation, who is the organizer not only for this entire 5 days conclave, and also for the exhibition and the guided tour that Jyot organized for all our members. With these words, I once again thank Shaurya Ji for sparing his valuable time and addressing our members on a thought leadership topic which will inspire us for future to come. Thank you, Shaurya Ji.